Attention soldiers, today you are deliberating the toughest decision you have to make at Fort Liberty, North Carolina. Whether you are going to live on base or off base. The pros and cons of battle begins now for you. From the close-knit camaraderie of living on base to the freedom of living off base. If you're thinking of buying, selling, or investing in the Fayetteville surrounding areas, please reach out to me. The team and I would love to help you. We get phone calls, emails, and text messages every day from folks just like you.
Sir, yes, sir.
So first thing we're going to tackle, are we going to talk about the pros and cons of living on base, and we're going to start with the pros. Pro number one is going to be convenience, obviously. You're living on base, you're next to where you work or close by. You have easy access to military services, the commissary, the PX, shopping, and all the amenities that come with living on base. Short commute to work, less stress, saves you some time, you don't have to wake up as early. Next thing is the community support. Living on base makes it a lot easier for the family sometimes. At least you're there with other military families. If your spouse goes overseas, 6 months to a year, however long, at least it makes it easier for the spouse. You've got people nearby, someone to kind of pass the time with you and help you, because they're going through the same thing possibly, or went through the same thing, or about to go through the same thing that you're about to go through. So it makes it a little easier for everybody. If you need a babysitter, possibly, you could make good friends with the neighbors. You got maybe some friends already there that you met at another base. So if you all live on base, it makes things just a little more smooth. If you had to go, like I mentioned earlier, one of the pros was everything, all the amenities, playgrounds nearby. If you got kids, hiking trails, things to do on base to where you don't have to, leave the base and the worries of coming back on the base. Well, not worries, but just the commute itself and just a hassle. Next thing is going to be security. Obviously, living on base is more secure than living off base. You've got to get checked in. Even visitors have to get checked in. You get a 24-hour pass. It's kind of a hassle to visit Fort Liberty, Fort Bragg. Last time I was on there maybe about a few months ago, and had to get a 24-hour pass, had to stand in line, get a ticket. So it's a hassle, but it's great if you're living on base. Obviously, you have your ID card, they just let you on through the gate, things like that. And obviously the crime and, living on base, not saying there's no crime on base, there's crime everywhere, but the likelihood of, people breaking in your cars, breaking in your house is not as high as it would be living off base. Obviously you're going to have, couples fighting, domestics, things like that. But serious crimes or, property crimes probably doesn't happen as often or at all while living on base. Next pro is going to be predictable expenses. Obviously, living on Fort Liberty, I don't know how it's with other bases, but all your utilities are paid for.
It's free.
All the maintenance is handled. So you have no surprises with the utility bill. Obviously, if it's winter time like it is now, it's December. And, you don't worry about, hey, I didn't expect the electricity bill to be $300-$400 because it was so cold. Or in the summertime, if it gets humid here in Fayetteville, Fort Liberty area. So definitely you're going to crank up that AC and you don't have to worry about those things like that because it's going to be, you never have that expense. I did go to Facebook and ask around about the expenses on Fort Bragg and what utilities are included. And the answer I got back was all utilities are paid for, and it depends on what area you live in, but internet is provided to you. Now, they couldn't tell me, and I didn't ask the question and no one answered it, but I asked, are you still paying for internet? I know it's provided to you like a certain company. I guess each neighborhood has certain internet services. So I asked, is that free or is that not free? No one answered me. So cannot answer that question just yet, but definitely each community has its own pool sometimes, a clubhouse, playground. So it's great for the kids. If you got kids or if you just want to take a dip yourself and go for a good swim, there's a community pool nearby. Or you could probably go, I'm assuming, to a pool at the neighborhood next to you. And going back to expenses, you don't have to worry about taxes at the commissary or taxes at the gas station either. So we'll go right into the cons. Obviously, one of the cons is limited privacy. Living on Fort Liberty, Fort Bragg, you're kind of close to each other. Right? There's no kind about it. You are close to each other. So if you like that, of course, that could be a pro for you. If if that's what you like. But if you want your space and privacy, it's going to be tight in there. So definitely you don't have the privacy you would have living off base.
I think the privacy would be nice, right?
And with that privacy, also you've got rules and regulations. Obviously, you've got to keep your grass cut. You got to keep the lawn maintenance up. Probably some rules and regulations on how long you can't stay up all night long playing your drums and your guitar, things like having a big party. Obviously, those things are limited as far as I know. And it kind of goes right into my next one, noise and activity. Like I said, it's kind of hard to have a party, with a lot of people. There's limited parking on Fort Bragg sometimes. Sometimes there's only like 1 or 2 parking spots for the people who live there. So having a birthday party for your kids or for yourself or just having a get together, unless it's just with the neighbors, is going to be kind of tough because there's no place for people to park sometimes. And let's say let's say you're an introvert and you're not into partying a lot. Your neighbors may be coming and knock on your door and say, hey, invite you to the next party, the next event. And you're always getting bombarded with people inviting you to things. So if you're an introvert, this may not be for you living on base. Next con is going to be limited housing opportunities on base. There is a long list. Talked to a few soldiers that I know, and some have said the waiting list is up to a year.
1 year.
Okay.
1 year.
We'll be here.
And if you've got a big family, depending on rank, you may not get something that you are asking for because a higher ranking officer obviously is going to get, first dibs on that. So, a long wait. And then when you finally get a chance to maybe live on base, you may not have it because you have limited spacing for a big family that you may have. If you're choosing a certain neighborhood or amenities, in a certain neighborhood, you good chance you may not get it. A good example is that I had an agent on our team who just helped their family move off base. Young couple, they had 4 children already, and they were expecting another child. She was actually pregnant and due in about 2 to 3 months. So we helped them find a home, and they were telling me and the other agent that they were living in a 2-bedroom apartment or house on base for about just over a year. With 4 children, their oldest was sleeping out in the living room area. The other 2 children were sharing a room. And, I guess the other 3 children were really sharing a room. And then, of course, the parents had their room. And then she was pregnant again. So you're looking at 5 people. Of course, the infant, when the baby was born or is going to be born, wouldn't take up much space. Obviously, probably sleeping a bassinet next to the parents still. But I mean, your oldest child is living in the living room or has their bedroom in the living room. So privacy for the child is not there. And then if you want to go watch a movie in your living room, you can't even really do it because it's just tough. So we definitely got them into a 4-bedroom house. I think it's around $220, $230 price range just a few months ago with other agent did. So definitely, I was talking to them, went to the closing. They're extremely happy with what they have. And just more room now, obviously, right before the baby comes. So now we're going to talk about the pros of living off base. So first one we talk about is going to be diverse options. Of course, you can buy a home, you can buy a townhome, condo. If you decide to rent a house, condo, townhome, obviously, or an apartment. So you have a lot of options. If you're a single guy or girl and you don't need a big house or you don't want a big house, definitely go rent an apartment, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom apartment. You get BAH, so you don't have to worry about, who's going to pay for this. Government's going to pay for it. Obviously, you got to know your budget. You yourself would know that. I can't tell you what your budget's going to be. If you go over your budget, just be careful. Obviously, if you stay under your budget, the great thing is you still get a certain BAH. So that never changes. So if you, maybe room up with 2, 3 other soldiers or get a roommate, that's great for you. You save more money. Another great thing is this. If you are thinking about buying a house, condo, townhome, homes appreciate in our area about, on average, 3 to 4% every year. Of course, I can't guarantee that. And also depends on you. If you own this, you've got to keep up the maintenance of it. You just can't buy a house and just let it kind of go to shit. You've got to keep it up. You got to, make sure everything's working good. Some things you can't control, but if something breaks down, take care of it. If you're missing shingles from your roof, replace them, fix your HVAC, things like that.
Done already, home improvements?
And the reason I bring this up is, let's say you buy a home for about $250,000 and it appreciates 3 or 4% every year. On average, your equity that you're going to obtain could be around $7,500 a year. So let's do the math there. So let's say you decide to buy a house and you decide to sell it within 5 years. Appreciation rate of 3 to 4%, you're making $7,500 a year. Times 5 is $37,500. So if you decide to sell it in 5 years, you possibly could make that much money, maybe more, maybe a little less, depending on appreciation value. But as you know, being near a military base, people are always moving here and people are always moving away from here. And if you don't want to sell it, definitely rent it out, build up a portfolio and help yourself. I see a lot of soldiers who use a VA loan to buy their next house. So they buy a house here, live in it, get PCS to another base, wherever they may go to, they buy their next house with a VA loan. You can keep using your VA loan over and over again if you didn't know that. So, that's an option. And then, I've got one soldier now who's telling me his goal is to buy a house at every base he's stationed at. So when he retires in 20 years, he has this big portfolio of homes, and then he can either sell it or keep renting it out. But, he's going to make that money, and he's built that portfolio up, built up his credit, built up his, if he decides to become a home flipper or just keep renting and keep buying more homes, that's definitely something he can, use, or they can use. So that's an option there too. It really can depend on you if you want to do something like that. I know it's a hassle to, live in California and you own property here and you've got to depend on somebody else, a property management team, to take care of it, things like that. But, that's the cost of doing business if that's what you want to look at doing possibly. The next thing can be community integration. So definitely living off base. You don't have that, always being around military people. You've got, other folks that are civilians here living nearby. So you've got access to public schools, private schools, things like that. Of course, we got more, you're gonna have more access to more restaurants, movie theaters, more entertainment, possibly off base than you would on base.
No, this is more fun.
And you're not just always in that military life. You've got that some little bit civilian life, mixed in with you. Something you may not like, something you may like, depending on you and your family. Next thing is the personalization. So definitely living off base. You don't have to worry about the rules and regulations 24/7. Even if you're off on Saturday, Sunday, living on base, some rules you got to follow still. So definitely living off base, you can kind of let your hair down, so to speak, and do what you want to do within that's legal, things like that. But there's no regulations. No one there to say you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, because you're a soldier living off base. You have more freedom. So definitely, that's that's what you like. Definitely a pro. Next thing we do is go into the cons of living off base. And, earlier I said one of the pro was to live on base was to be close to work. So for you, depending on you and your family, the con is going to be the commute. So if you want to be close to base, you obviously have to find something off base 10, 15, 20 minutes away, depending how far you want to drive. Some people like it. So if you're like, hey, once I'm off base, then this is going to be a pro for you. But it could be a con if you're like, hey, I'm gung-ho soldier. I want to live on base and, be close to everything. And you don't have to worry about that long, stuck in rush hour traffic. Not that we have a lot of traffic here, but just the commute itself. So definitely that could be a con. The next one is going to be potential isolation. So, I mentioned this in one of the pros of living on base was to be near other military families for support. So obviously this is going to be a con where if, your spouse goes overseas and, you're by yourself with the children, or if you don't have children, but, you don't have that camaraderie, you don't have that, someone there to, keep you company, keep the time passing. And, they could be in the same situation as you. Their spouse is overseas too. So definitely living on base, you've got that more camaraderie than you would off base, because you could be surrounded by civilians, kind of get boring and you're not talking to anybody. Are you thinking of relocating to the Fayetteville surrounding areas, or are you about to PCS to Fort Liberty? Well, I've got just the thing for you. The team and I have actually taken time to create the ultimate relocation guide, which is meant to save you hours of research, and I've linked it down below in the description. And the best part of this guide is 100% free. Yes, you heard me right, free. Just click the link in the description or the top pinned comment. I hope this helps you, and please reach out if you have any questions. Next thing is financial consideration. So now living off base, you've got your freedom, but you don't know what your electricity bill is going to be. On average, you can gauge it's probably going to be, difference of $20 to $50 a month, on each bill. Obviously, during the winter, summertime, like I mentioned earlier, it could be higher, it could be lower. You got to now pay for internet. You got to, if you live in your own house or rent a house, you're going to have to cut the grass. Even if you're renting a house, unless you hire somebody to do it, of course, then you're paying someone to do it. But either way, the expense is there. You're looking at someone to keep up the lawn. If you live in an apartment, condo, townhome, those maintenance are taken care for you, but you're paying for it. Usually you have an HOA with condo, townhomes, and with the apartment, obviously the rent is going to cover the maintenance part of it. So, you're looking at these other expenses. Of course, you got your BAH also. So, if you can stay within your budget, then you're okay there.
It's not that expensive.
Obviously, living off base, you're not probably going to go to the commissary every day. So now you've got to pay taxes on the grocery store. You're getting gas outside of the base. You're paying taxes on the gas now. So keep those things in mind. Those are expenses that you can't control. And here's a little bonus tip. If I didn't mention earlier, BAH has increased for 2024 by 5.3%. So that means soldiers with dependents get 22.0% more than soldiers without dependents. If you enjoyed this video, please check out this video right here where I talk about PCSing to Fort Bragg. And if you think of buying, selling, or investing in the Fayetteville surrounding areas, please reach out to the team and I. We would love to help you. See you guys in the next video.